Hello and welcome to another episode of the CEO Pick. I am Dave Osh, your host today, and the CEO Pick show selects CEOs who lead teams that individually and collectively build the capacity and capability to create outcomes that matter most for the organization and the society in disruption and complexity. Such a leader is our guest today, Inna Kuznetsova, the CEO of 1010 Data, the leading provider of cross-enterprise data analytics tools. 1010 Data empowers customers to adjust their businesses to market evolutionary events and make better decisions through activating data. 1010 Data is considered the partner of choice by Dollar General, Sam's Club, Family Dollar, Procter & Gamble, Bank of America, and JP Morgan, and other top retail, CPG, and financial companies. Inna is the former president and chief operating officer of INTTRA, the largest digital network and analytics provider for ocean shipping industry, chief commercial officer of CEVA Logistics, and before that, the global VP marketing and sales system software at IBM, where she spent 19 years in a variety of global roles. Inna also served as an independent non-executive director on the board of Global Ports Investments, and she's a frequent speaker on technology-driven innovation and an author of 2 best-selling career books in Russia. So hello, Inna, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that just before, when we started, we found that we share something in common, that we are both vegans. So that's a fun fact about you. And I really appreciate that you took the time to join us today.
I'm always happy to share vegan recipes. I love cooking. But let's talk about the CEO ordeal today.
Me too. Let's have the cooking show on another opportunity, okay? So, Inna, we talked before about the importance of managing the relationship with the board, and I thought it would be a great topic to start today. So what you have learned since you became the CEO of 1010 Data about the relationship and how CEOs should manage the relationship with the board?
I think the relationship with the board is one of the major differences between the role of the CEO and the role of the head of P&L, head of the division, or president in a company. It's moving from a situation where you have one boss to the situation when you have 6, 7, 8, 10 bosses, depending on how many people you have on the board. But the board is not just steering the company. The board is a fantastic body of advisors and help. So building that relationship and using that relationship to propel the company to success, aligning vision, aligning strategy, getting advice, figuring out which of the members of the board can give an advice in what situation, becomes a new thing and very valuable thing. And of course, becoming the CEO during COVID is a very interesting adventure because the whole entering the crisis management zone takes a new meaning. Any CEO role is whack-a-mole game of sorts, right? You get some crisis every week, something requiring attention. But during COVID times, and especially economic crisis times and social unrest, you get more unprecedented events than ever. So keeping the board informed, finding that level of transparency and neutrality when you own the outcome and you take the full responsibility for the outcome, and yet you keep the board fully informed as soon as possible about any big events that happen in a company with its customers, with its employees, anything critical, that becomes very, very important.
Yeah, and how do you manage a balance between one-on-one relationship with board members and the collective board?
I've been blessed with a wonderful board who is very understanding and supportive, and the board that has very nice dynamic and really, really focused on the company's success. So personally, I have not found it to be a difficult thing. Only difference is understanding who can help the most in what issues, right? Because there are independent members of the board who are current or former operating executives, and they may be offering better advice when it comes to shaping up sales plans or compensation or organizational structure, while there may be investors who have financial acumen and maybe a better sounding board when it comes to a variety of financial issues. But overall, I think it's just something to have in mind as a part of your job description.
How do you lead high-performing executive team, and how do you manage the relationship between the executive team and the board?
I think besides the board relationship and providing information and leadership and communication between the board and the company, one of the most important functions of the CEO is building this high performance executive team under the CEO, because you alone can never do as much as 10 talented people can do, right? Each one of executives on my team are fantastic people, very strong in the areas that are complementary to me, right? I may come from technology field and sales field, but I would never be as proficient in technology as our CTO, or understanding sales process and sales compensation as well as the head of sales. So the CEO has a very important role, though, and this is building trust and productive relationship within the executive team. I have seen executive teams that sit in meetings silently or talk to each other politically, politely, and then go back and continue doing their own thing, right? If the company goes through a business transformation, if the company operates during the crisis like we all do in COVID times, it's important for the executive team to work together. And working together means having productive conflict and being able to go and have beer. Well, today we cannot have beer during COVID, virtual beer, virtual happy hour after the argument, being able to trust each other to do other people's jobs, right? If the technical team says we will deliver that solution to that date, believing them and continue discussing that solution with the customer, that requires trust, right? Trust in building the best environment for the employees, letting employees from one group go to another group to pursue a career there, because especially in a company of a limited size, not IBMs or GEs of this world, the only way we can offer people career progression or professional development is if we let them move from one group to another within the company. Otherwise, they just leave the company, right, and pursue their growth somewhere else. So again, trusting your colleagues, letting your best people, maybe the stars, go and pursue another position in another group. Those things, they require very special relationship. They require trust in brainstorming complex situations. They require living by decisions, because whenever we clash in our opinion and what functions we add to the solution, or how we approach a strategic initiative, we may disagree, right? But once we finish our arguments, once we finish our deliberation, come to an agreement, it's important that we'll execute on the same thing and not try to sabotage our colleagues. And again, that requires trust. So building, and I keep using the word trust because I think that's the foundation, right? And after trust come productive debate and productive conflict and productive exchange that results in taking company to a new level of excellence and good performance. So building that team is an important role for the CEO, bringing in the right players, helping them to onboard, helping them to build relationship with others. And especially if you have several very strong executives who are stars in their field, they're entitled to their opinions, right? And they may be a little bit strong-headed when it comes to disagreements, and they may clash in those debates. So making sure that debate stays, but does not get into the conflict zone where it becomes unrecoverable damage to relationship, right? That's also, all of this is the role of the CEO, right? My role is to make all these functions get aligned and working together, right? It's like in an orchestra. If the violin plays louder than the rest of the instruments, it's not an orchestra playing, right? It's just violin and the rest of the orchestra. So we can show that they play together and they create a beautiful tune that helps us to get where we want to get as a company. We get there together.
Yeah, I love the metaphor of the orchestra as the conductors of the orchestra to keep this harmony among the team members. And you mentioned that there's kind of a fine line. On one hand, you want to have the relationship to build the trust, but you want also the debate and the confrontation when the issues are serious. So how do you walk this fine line to create a balance between relationship and trust and also enable the confrontation that people will have the courage to confront each other without losing the relationship?
Well, I think it's, first of all, it starts with yourself and the relationship that people build with you, right? So you have to be brutally honest, tell it as is, but at the same time, be nice and be respectful. You help always to stay by what you promise. If you promise to do something, you deliver it, right? If you promise that the other group will do it and the other group promises is, you hold people accountable. And at the same time, if there are objective conditions coming in, you help everyone else understand what happens, right? So there are bugs in code that sometimes unpredictable, right? There are sales deals that may go in the wrong direction, especially during the economic crisis. So you hold everyone accountable to what they promised to do, but you don't make that environment threatening. You encourage candid debate, you seek out opinions, you ask questions, you get people to talk to each other, get people to spend a lot of time together if possible, and show human side, show some vulnerability, talk about our childhoods and family and hobbies. And my whole team now knows I cannot ride a bicycle, right? I have my things I'm not proud of. So I think a little bit of love, a little bit of communications, keeping everyone on the same page. It's no different from building friendships, right? Or keeping relationship in a family or in a good class in academia, right? But the CEO has always to remember that this is important, right? And that violating that trust once, violating your promise, not keeping one part of the team accountable without keeping the other part accountable, all those things, they backfire in the long run.
You said that when you have executive stars in a company that own their own opinion, how do you align them together when you have those different opinions and you need to bring them together on board? How do you create this alignment within the executive team?
I've been lucky. We work in the data analytics space, right? So we're all very data driven and extremely logical. So you have to avoid using knowledge as a religion. You have to use knowledge as a data-driven thing. If we disagree on which approach is better, let's do two prototypes and test it, right? Let's benchmark things. Let's try it, right? Let's not just say I'm in this field for 30 years and I know it, right? You just say, well, let's prove it whenever it's possible to prove, right? Whatever it's possible to test. I think there are usually reasons why people have opinions, and they're usually good reasons, right? There are certain practices that worked for them before. They may work in the current environment, they may not work in the current environment. So having more discussions about why, hearing people out. When we worked on a long-term strategy for the company, I intentionally chose a long way, which was, first of all, having a task force of younger employees without pre-existing agendas and 10 years of 20 years of baggage with the company, who developed their vision and their ideas. And then we brought those ideas to the executive leadership team. And executive leadership team split into groups. And we had a group working on product strategy and a group working on go-to-market strategy. And I should admit, it took 5 months. And probably I could hire consultants and get a beautiful set of charts in 30 days. But working through this allowed us to walk through disagreements, allowed us to listen to each other, allowed us to say, do everyone agree? Wait a second, someone has doubts. Can we hear this person out. Why does this person have doubts? And maybe soften the language, or maybe choose another option, or maybe think about alternatives. Because in the end of the day, everyone on the executive team has to rally behind their strategy and go to the market and execute. They have to embrace that strategy as their own, not just something given to them from the top. And I think that's worth another couple of months of work and painful discussions and debate.
Yeah. So I think that this is so powerful. What you said about creating alignment by enable freedom for the employees to create their own visions and present them. That's such a powerful strategy to create alignment for organization that many people discount. So that's a beautiful insight. I'd like to switch gear and ask you, you scale the corporate ladder up to the highest position and as a woman. And I used to, ignore and kind of not talking about that. But now I really want to understand and help to inspire other women to scale up the corporate ladder. What you have learned, what will you recommend to women that have the ambition to get to the top?
I think one of the problems women face early in their lives, in the childhood, in probably elementary school, is that we're not taught to take risks and recover from failures as much as boys do. And I was somewhat lucky being brought up in Russia, which of course brought a lot of other issues and cultural clashes. But in Russia, all women work and girls did sports as much as boys did, and the gender differences were not that pronounced in STEM, right? In Russia, there's 40% of women participation in professions like software development and engineering versus just 25% in the US, for example. So I think risk-taking becomes one of the very important steps, recovering from failures, right? You cannot grow in your career. You cannot learn anything if you don't fall and step back. And sports teaches this in a very good way, right? When I was young, when I was in school, I danced on skates. And what learning to dance on skate is, it takes falling on a very hard ice a lot of times, right? And that's pretty much what building the career is. You fall many times and you recover. And you learn something in the process, right? You don't do it just for the sake of recovering. You try to do it better next time you do. It's difficult for women because women are told by our society to be nice and to smile and to smooth edges. And sometimes it goes very difficult with risk taking. We're afraid to make mistakes. I think there are less opportunities for women in general. There is also a little bit of a fist fight because, of course, the higher you progress in your career, the tougher the competition is for the next spot on the ladder. There are a few spots. So not being afraid of that competition, not being afraid to ask for what you want, taking risks to deliver results when you promise results. It's not always easy to combine with what women go in daily lives, right? We still usually have the most of responsibility for the running homes and kids, and sometimes it just becomes twice more difficult. And we also have an option, right? It's okay for women to say, you know what, I'm done with this. It's enough for me. I just want an easier life and a new dress. And men don't have that luxury. And women do, right? So it's always, sometimes it's very tempting to say that crisis was enough. So it's almost both on men and on women. For women to take more risks, to plan their career and stay and make decisions according to the plan that they've made, to learn to recover from the failures, not walk away from the failures, not take less risky positions, take line jobs where it's harder. For men, it's about understanding that you have to give a woman a chance, that there's always someone who doesn't look like you, and you may not easily see her in that role. So giving a woman a chance is a very, very big thing, even as much as including a woman on a slate of people you interview for the position. I am forever grateful for men who gave me my first management role, my first executive role, my first sit on a board. who placed their trust in me, because I understand it probably was a bit difficult for them. I did not look like the rest of the candidates, and I'm very, very grateful for them taking that risk on me.
Great. So that's really insightful. Take risk, not afraid of failures. And I love also just sometimes, close the options, limit your own options so you can take actually more risks. Any other recommendation you have to other fellow CEOs who are watching the show?
I personally find that serving on a board makes me a better CEO, and being a CEO makes me a better director, because once you see this interaction from both sides, you probably can help whatever side you find yourself in, right? You can relate more to the management team and what they go through when you serve on a board as a director. But also being a CEO, you understand what directors are looking for, right? They want materials submitted before the weekend so that they can read it, because they have several boards, so they have a daily job. And they want transparency, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they want things to explain on a high level, but being able to drill down. All those things that you learn being on the other side of the table was very helpful. So my advice to everyone, if you are not yet on a board, try to get to serve, even if it's a smaller company or non-profit. I think it's been a very, very good experience. And of course, to all my fellow CEOs, stay safe and best of luck to survive the current crisis. I hope we'll all meet on the other side of it intact and successful and grow our businesses.
Ina, thank you so much for taking the time and being with us today. I appreciate the insightful and the beautiful moments that you gave us today. And thank you for watching the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for this time.